Good evening, everyone, and welcome this evening to the Master of Education webinar from the University of Dundee. My name is Helen Spiropoulos, Admissions Manager at Stafford Global, and joining me this evening once again from the university is Dr. Richard. Good evening to you, Dr. Richard.
And lovely to meet everybody virtually this evening.
Good. Okay, so how are we going to conduct the interview pardon me, how we're going to conduct the webinar this evening is I'm just briefly going to introduce you to Stafford Global. I'm then going to hand you over to Dr. Richard, who's going to take you through the program. Now, at the end of the presentation, you will have the opportunity to type out any questions that you wish to ask Dr. Richard or myself, and we'll do our utmost best to answer these questions. I am going to be looking at these quite closely because a lot of the questions are identical. So I am actually going to start grouping them together. Okay, so let's get started on the webinar. Who is Stafford Global? We were established in 1993 and we are a resource centre for distance learning education in the Middle East. And currently we are a resource centre for 6 UK universities, one of which is the University of Dundee. And we have been in partnership with the University of Dundee for quite a few years now. We do offer a variety of programs ranging from certificates to diplomas, bachelors, masters, right through until doctorates. So we really do have all the programs that would suit your personal and professional needs. We also do offer academic and administrative support, and the mere fact that you're here with us this evening means that you have been in communication with one of our very experienced academic consultants. And our job here at Stafford is to make sure that you get into the right program, you get your very important unconditional offer, and start your program directly with the university. Okay, so let me now hand you over to Dr. Richard. He's going to take you through the program and I'll join you towards the end of the presentation. Over to you, Dr. Richard.
Helen, thank you so much for that introduction, and it's always great to meet everybody around the world, wherever you may be as well, even though it's just virtually and online. And Helen, again, thanks for that introduction. We've been working with Stafford, as you said, for quite some time, and it's a really great positive relationship we've got. So we really do hope that after today you'll take up this opportunity and you'll apply for one of the courses. I'm going to give you a very quick introduction to myself. My name is Richard Holme. I am a reader and a lecturer in education studies, and I'm also one of the core members of staff for the Master of Education. So I'm a module leader and I'm also a tutor. And I work on several of the modules. So if you come to study on the MEd at Dundee, then you may come across me at some point working on one of the particular modules. My own background is I've got now over 20 years experience of working in teaching, educational leadership and research, and that's both based in school education and then for the last decade working at the university. My own personal interests, which might be similar to some of yours, depending on your background and the setting you're working in, is I'm very interested in the professional learning or professional development of teachers and educators, but I also have a subject specific interest in the STEM subject areas. So this is science, technology, engineering and maths, and my first degree many years ago was in the natural sciences. Now, the modules that I work on include things like reflective practice and innovation in education. So I also have quite a strong interest in those areas as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of these modules later on, and I'll be able to give you my perspective from a tutor point of view, but I might also call on my own experiences from before I came to work at the university, when I myself was a master's student and I completed an MEd whilst I was working part-time and also through an online distance learning mechanism that you're interested in today. So we can hopefully give you some more information on that. Now, just before I go on and tell you a little bit about the University of Dundee and the course, I always like to let people know where Dundee is. Now, if you'll be studying online, there's a chance that you won't come to Dundee or come to Scotland, but what we will do is encourage people to come, certainly for graduation. So there's a few images there. It's the fourth biggest city in Scotland, and you can see from the image, the map there, that we're not far at all from Edinburgh and Glasgow, which you've probably heard of, the two big cities in the major cities, the capital, and Glasgow's the biggest city in Scotland. And we're not a long way away from the various big centres, cities in England as well. And you can get to London. You could obviously fly to London if you were here in person, or you could take the train. And the train's actually quite a quick train. It goes down to London in, I think, under 6 hours now. So that's just a little bit about Dundee, in case you haven't heard of it before. It's a great little city. I'm not originally from Dundee. I grew up near Manchester in England, and I've lived in various different places. I've worked overseas, but also in the north of England, in different places like Newcastle, and briefly in London as well. And I love it in Dundee. It's a great place. And our teaching and the way that we deliver our courses very much represents a lot that the city stands for. So it's a city of discovery. It's got a lot of innovation taking place. It's got a very strong industrial heritage. And the university itself has had a strong teaching and learning history with the various courses for well over 100 years now. Now, the University of Dundee, we have a purpose that we share with all the students, regardless of the courses that they're coming to study, whether they're a distance learning online student or they're a full-time student. And this is that we aim to transform lives, both locally and globally, through the sharing and application of knowledge. And as you're all education professionals with a background in education, whether you work in early years education, in school-based education, maybe K-12 education, kindergarten through to end of statutory education, or whether you work in further education, higher education, or something similar, you will understand the importance of trying to impact and influence and transform lives. And this won't just be the transformation effect on yourself as an individual. It'll be your colleagues that you work with, as well as the young people or the students or the learners that you're supporting, and then their immediate families, their friends, and the local communities that you are based in, whether it's now or whether it's in future. Now, a little bit about the rankings at the University of Dundee. We're very proud of these. There are thousands of universities around the world, and we were recently ranked in the top 250 in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. We're also one of the top 200 universities using the QS World University Rankings from 2022 for employability. And we know that's a really important thing for you if you're considering a master's course and you're considering undertaking master's study, is what the employability opportunities are. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And we're also ranked #1 in an organisation called Student Crowd's Best 5 Scottish Universities in 2022 as well. So just a few stats about the students at the University of Dundee. We have a large number of on-campus students, and this includes undergraduates, postgraduates, whether it's taught postgraduates like the MEd or research postgraduates. We also have a large number of international students, and you'll notice there we've got some off-campus global students and online learners, and that's very nearly 2,000 students. So you're not coming to a university or engaging in a course where as an online or distance learner there's only a small handful of people. You're part of a wider community, and the staff who've been working on the Master of Education course that will be supporting you and teaching you have got lots of experience in this area of supporting people who may be based remotely, who may be studying independently. And what we try to do is give you help and support around that, and it's the same throughout the University of Dundee. So that's just a little bit of context about the university. What I'm going to do now is tell you more detail about the MEd. So the image here on the screen is some of our MEd students who have actually made it to campus. So we have a full-time 1-year course, as well as the distance learning online course that you're interested in. And basically, as you can see, the students here, they're engaged in a range of different modules and learning opportunities that focus on things such as reflective practice, an opportunity for work-based inquiry. So this is things like practitioner research, where you could investigate particular innovations or initiatives in your classroom setting or your work-based setting. And we learn more about action research. So it's designed as a professional development program for educators who already have some level of experience and who are already qualified to degree level to work in their particular setting and to hopefully advance their career. Now, something that's important to note is that although we've got multiple points along the full MEd course, including something which is a PG cert. This is not the same as the PGCE you may have heard of, which would be a qualifying programme for UK state schools. So we do need to make that clear to people that by completing the MEd or one of the exit points, which is a PG cert, a PG postgraduate certificate, or a PG dip, a postgraduate diploma, that they do not qualify you for UK state schools. What we say to people is make sure that you check out the guidance for where you're planning to work or where you're currently based to see what the local government rules are or the registering body rules are. And there are lots of opportunities beyond statutory teaching and statutory schooling that the MEd could lead you to if you're thinking about going down this route. So a bit more detail about the MEd, the Master of Education programme. It's a part-time online programme, distance learning programme, and we also have a fast-track study option. So what this gives you is some flexibility and autonomy so you can study in the way and at the time that suits you best. So we offer an approach which is based around blended learning, and this combines online learning materials and also live webinars which you can join in the same way that you might be joining this call tonight, or you might have had Zoom or Teams conversations or meetings with people in your professional life. And all of this is delivered through our bespoke virtual learning environment called My Dundee. So when you join the course, you'll be given guidance and an induction that will talk you through how to access the teaching materials. We're really proud of the way that we've developed this over the years so that it provides students an opportunity to engage in teaching in their own time, to access materials such as through the library or videos that have been recorded for you, as well as the live teaching sessions. I've mentioned already that it's a very practical or practice-based course, and the focus is on your professional development and your professional learning. And due to the flexibility of it, the modular nature, the fact that there are different options and choices that you can take, it will allow you to focus on your interests and develop a speciality in an area that you want to know more about and become an expert in. We're also recognised and accredited by the International Baccalaureate Organisation, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail about that if this is something that you're interested in pursuing. And our student body, our cohort of students, come from all sorts of sectors of education. They are all around the world, representing, I think now, probably over 100 different countries. We've had students studying with us, so we're able to support a truly vibrant global learning community. And we understand that studying online can sometimes be quite a solitary activity. So you're doing your day job, you're trying to find some time in the evenings or maybe at weekends to study as well. So we try and support that as well, and we have resources available so you can engage and you can make connections and contacts. Also, you might choose not to do that. Some people choose to be online or distance learners because all they would like to do is just work through the studies in their own time, and we understand that as well. So what we try to do is provide opportunities that are as flexible for you as possible. So why would you choose to study at master's level? The fact that you've joined this call already means you've got some interest in this. Well, the first reason is to extend your own knowledge and your expertise and help you develop a specialism. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own experience of being a master's student and why I undertook it when I was a teacher. But it also helps you develop transferable skills. So it's things like your skills in planning and organising your time. So we give you lots of support with the studies, but alongside that, you will be learning for yourself, and you'll be planning and you'll be designing your own learning process and progress through the modules and through each semester as it comes. You'll learn about research and the application of different research methods, how to use data, how to conduct and how to execute your own research projects as well. And also you'll learn a lot about writing academically and critical thinking, and we'll give support for that, so that if you've not been working academically in a university setting for a number of years, we realise that, and we'll give you the help and support along the way. We also, one of the other reasons for undertaking master's study is it will help you with your career progression and help you develop, whether it's into a specialist area, whether it's into leadership and management, maybe working in local government where you're based, or maybe moving to a different country, because some of you may be considering moving, and it may help you in that process as well. Now, going back to my own personal experience of being a master's student, I undertook master's study part-time because the teacher training course that I'd done was quite a practical course, and it didn't have the theoretical underpinning. And what I did was I selected certain modules that were going to help me develop. And at the time, I was a primary school or elementary school teacher. And having come from a science and technology background, a STEM background, one of the areas that I struggled a little bit with was teaching the students and the pupils in my class English language and English literature. So I undertook a module that allowed me to investigate that in greater depth. And for that module, I learned about different approaches to teaching language in an elementary school, primary school setting, and I learned more about studying different authors. So at that time, while I was studying that particular module, I was using a book which you can see on the screen here with the class called Private Peaceful. So if you don't know this, it's a great book. Michael Morpurgo written a range of books for children. And in this particular book, it's set in the First World War, and it's about three brothers, two of whom go off to fight in the First World War. So I won't spoil it for you and tell you anything about this book, but I can recommend it. Although it's a children's book, or it's aimed at children, as an adult you could read it as well. And I was studying this as part of my master's module, and at the same time I was reading it with a class who I was teaching, 9 and 10-year-olds. And what we were doing was we were looking at themes in this particular story. And because it's set during the First World War, and two of the boys are quite young who go to fight, I think one of them is only 16, but one of the key themes is the coming of age, so them discovering who they are. And I was discussing this with the class one day, and we'd been reading it. We were about halfway through the book. And one of the boys, who was perhaps about 9 or 10 years old, put his hand up. And he pointed out that on the front cover of the book, you can see on the screen here, there are 2 butterflies. And he began to explain how the butterflies signified this changing and this coming of age and this developing and moving from being a caterpillar through a pupae stage to being this butterfly. And he then went on to point out that in the book, one of the characters sings a song called Oranges and Lemons. And it's a famous sort of folk song in the UK. You might have heard of it. And he pointed out that this song that features in the book, Oranges and Lemons, is also represented by the 2 butterflies, one of which is orange and one of which is yellow for the lemons. And this just stopped me in my tracks, that this 9, 10-year-old boy had learnt about this idea of themes and this idea of representation. And I could talk to the pupils, the learners in my class, about this experience of me being a learner, and that they were learning from me and I was learning from them as well. So it was something that was it had a significant impact on my teaching when I was undertaking master's study, and all the other members of the teaching team that we'll be working through have been through that same process themselves. Most of us have gone on to do doctorates and carry out our own research, but we all look fondly back on our time as master's students as well. So hopefully, if you choose to undertake master's study, you will have similar examples like this, where you can take what you've learned, you can apply it in the classroom, and you're having that transformational effect both on the learners and on their friends and family, and equally they're having that impact on you as well. So assuming you decide to apply and you want to undertake master's study, then what you can do is you can develop a specialism, and we've got a number of specialist named awards. Now, when I was a master's student, I wanted to have as much of a generalist experience as possible. So I selected a range of different modules, including one that covered innovation in education. I also had to do a research methods module, a reflective practice module, and a final dissertation where I looked at behavior management and classroom management. So I went down the route of having an MEd in leading, learning and teaching, this generic general name. Now, if you don't want that generic general name for your masters, and you would rather have your named award to focus on educational leadership, maybe you're interested in international education, possibly you're interested in special educational needs and inclusive education, or maybe you're based in a nursery or early years setting, then you might want to select one of those. We also have the TESOL named award, where you would pick up specific modules in TESOL that would allow you to get a master's qualification and also learn about teaching English as a second or alternative language. Now, there's also potential other pathways being developed in the next couple of years. there's been some discussion with the team, the management team, around the possibility of a module relating to sustainability in education. So environmental issues, sustainability are really important in the news. We know this is going to be a huge factor for the next few hundred years, if not beyond. So there might be an opportunity, if you undertake the full MEd, the 3-year MEd, to possibly undertake that module if you wish. I can answer more questions on this, or you can get in touch with us later if you want to ask more about these specialisms. So there are various, you can undertake various modules and have various exit or graduation points. The first point where you can leave with a certificate would be after 60 credits, and that would be 2 modules. So you would do reflecting upon practice as your first module and another optional module, for example, international education. If you wish at that point, you can leave with the postgraduate certificate, or you can, and that would take you a year, or you could continue and do 4 modules, which would usually be 2 years. And then what you would probably do is a reflecting upon practice module, 2 of the optional modules, and the research methods module as well. And that would be 120 credits, and that would allow you to exit with a postgraduate diploma. The final option, which a lot of people choose to do, is the full 180 credits for the full MEd or Master of Education. So in that case, you would complete the reflecting upon practice module, 2 of the optional modules, depending on whether you wanted the specialist named award or not, and then you would do the research methods module before executing the double module dissertation, which is a year-long project which can either be based on literature, it can be a desk-based study, or you can carry out your own empirical research, maybe using perhaps instruments, methods and tools like a survey or a questionnaire, or maybe some focus groups to learn more from either your learners in your class or maybe from your peers, from your colleagues, that will give you empirical data that you collect yourself, and then you can write up for the 11,000 word dissertation. Now, the assessment for these modules is usually, for the 30 credit modules, a 4,000 word assignment, but there are a couple of alternative approaches. For example, one of the modules has the option to do a presentation instead of that. So you can record a presentation or you can deliver it live instead of doing an assignment, an essay. And as I mentioned, the dissertation is a double module, 60 credits. So that's an 11,000 word dissertation. Now that might sound to some people a bit daunting at the moment, writing 4,000 words on a topic, but we do give you that help and support to get you to where you want to be with the academic writing, with using sources like journal articles or research that's been published, and we will help you along the way. So just to illustrate the various named award pathways, what you would do is, if you wanted to focus in on leading, learning and teaching, you would do the core modules, which is the reflective practice module, the research module and the dissertation, and you could pick any 2 optional modules you want. Whereas for the other named awards, for example, educational leadership, you would complete the leadership and organizational module and another optional module, and your dissertation would focus also on leadership and organizational development. And the same goes for the international education or the inclusive education named award, or the nursery early education named award and the TESOL named award as well. If you've got questions on this towards the end, we can give more details on that. So the other option that you've got is that you might choose to complete either one of the PG certificates or the full MEd with a dual IB qualification. So the way that this works is there's 3 options for you to undertake here. So it's the same model of delivery, it's the online course, it's the different credits, the different modules, but these modules will have a focus on the International Baccalaureate. So the first one is you can complete an IB certificate in leadership practice, and this is 2 60 credit specific modules, and you don't need any IB International Baccalaureate experience to undertake that. Now, what a lot of people do when they've completed that is they continue and they exit with a full MEd, so that's the 180 credits, so they do 4 further modules, and they would then be awarded, in addition to the MEd, an advanced certificate in leadership research. Now, there is a third option here, which is for people who are already working in an IB school, and this is probably the top level master's qualification or accredited qualification that the International Baccalaureate offer. And this is the Advanced Certificate in Learning and Teaching Research. And for that, you do need to have had the 3 years teaching experience in an IB school. And what you will do is you'll complete the same modules that you would be doing for the MEd, but your focus would be on an IB related topic as well. We've got a specialist member of staff with experience of teaching the IB routes, and they would be able to give you more guidance and help on that if you have specific questions around this. It's a really nice option to take, especially one of the first two if you're thinking about working in IB schools in future. And the way it works is you complete the chosen either postgraduate certificate or the MEd on one of these two routes, and then at the end of it you apply to the International Baccalaureate for this additional certificate, and they will contact us to confirm that you've fulfilled the requisite modules and you've completed successfully, and then they will issue you with that certificate and we will issue with the MEd. So in some ways it's the sort of qualification where you've done one and you actually get a bonus one alongside it, so it's worth giving that a thought. So what time commitments and what does the studies look like? Well, the way we work is we've got 2 entry points. So the studies start usually around October and April. Now this shifts just depending on the way the weeks have worked each year, but usually the studies will start either in October, so that'll be our next start point, or April. And if you're studying part-time, you will complete a 30 credit module in a 17-week period. Now, in some ways, 17 weeks sounds like quite a long time, but it can go quite quickly. So usually the first 10 weeks or so, or 10 to 12 weeks, are given over to you being given content in the virtual learning environment and having an opportunity to attend live webinars, which are delivered through the intranet or through the university's virtual learning environment. And then you'd probably spend the remaining sort of 7 to 5 weeks studying independently, working on your assignment. But you can still go back to the recordings of any sessions, any live sessions, because we record them all and we upload them for you to review again. You'll have access to all the reading materials and all the content that we upload for you to support that. Now, the only difference is the dissertation double module, where you have 46 weeks for that. And our reason for that is because you have to, for some people, you'll be collecting your own data and you'll have to go through an ethical application process. You'll have to get permission from the university to go and collect data from real people. So we acknowledge that takes longer, so we don't have a fast track option for that final year. So if you were to undertake the fast track route, then you could do 2 30 credit modules in that 17 weeks. Now we do advise, I advise strongly against this, because if you're working in a day job at the same time, trying to fit in an additional 35 hours a week study is a real challenge. So our recommendation is that you take the 3 years over it, you take your time for it, you get the learning build up, you let the learning sink in as you're going along, and you'll get better as you went along. And most of the staff that work on the MEd program, this is the route they did. They did it online, they did it part-time, and they did it over a 3-year period as well. Now we do have a 1-year full-time option to come and study in Scotland in Dundee, but that's not offered through Stafford, so that's not what we're talking about today. But if you're looking on the website, you may see reference to that, but we don't offer that as an online option. So that's a little bit about how the course works practically. I'm going to tell you a little bit now about the student support that you will have access to and how you'll be supporting your student life. In some ways, as an online learner, as a distance learner who's working in a job, in a day job, who's a professional, then you might not think that the student life is quite for you. But there are still a lot of services and resources you can access. You will have a dedicated academic advisor of studies. So currently it is for Stafford students, it's Helen Cunningham, and Helen is also one of the tutors on the International Baccalaureate route, and Helen's worked across a range of different modules in international education. She's worked in international schools herself as well as in the UK. So Helen would be there to give you advice and give you support beyond your academic tutoring and your module leaders. You've also got access to things like the university counselling facilities and disability services, and this is something that online learners don't always think about, but we've got a very strong disability support service at the University of Dundee. So our advice is, if you do have difficulties that may impact on your studies, then get in touch with your academic advisor of studies, who would then be able to advise you and point you in the right direction. We also have an international language advice service as well, and they offer support to students too, and you can access some of their resources. And much of this is available on the website, the university website. So as a student, you can log in, you can access this, and you can work through it in your own time. And we also give academic skills support and English language support as well. So all this is made available to you through the university website. It's part of paying to be a student, is you get access to all this. And we also have something called the Community Hub area, and we also have lots of valuable information in there, short videos that will help you and point you in the right direction. So you can always ask for help, and you can always ask for support if you're finding things a challenge. So what are your entry requirements? So for all routes, we ask that you have an undergraduate degree. We don't ask for a specific discipline, so it doesn't matter if you've got an undergraduate degree in maths, or you've got an undergraduate degree in ancient history, or maybe something like business and finance. Then the fact that you've worked at degree level means that you will be able to work at master's level. It's the next level up. And the way I always think about this, it's a bit like when you move through the schooling system. So those of you that teach in schools, you'll move from one age group to the next, and the children always cope and they always manage, and they're made to work it through. And sometimes it's a bit more challenging at first, but then they get used to it, and they don't look back where they were 2 or 3 years ago. The masters is like that. It's the next level along from your undergraduate degree. Now, if your undergraduate degree wasn't taught in English, then the English language requirement is an academic IELTS of 6.5 or equivalent. We've got details of this on the university website, and again at the end we're going to give you a contact details. So if you've got queries about that, you can get in touch and you can ask more about that. The other thing that we require, as well as an undergraduate degree and your requirements to be proficient in English, is you need some teaching or educational experience. Now, if you're not currently working in a relevant setting, then that's okay, it's fine. You can call on the experience you've had before. So sometimes people are taking a career break, or they're wanting to move back into education. As long as you've got some educational experience as a teacher or an educator, it doesn't have to be in school-based teaching, it can be in further education, it can maybe in some sort of workforce training or workforce development setting as well, then that will help you situate your studies in that practical experience. And if you've got queries about that as to whether that's relevant, again, you can get in touch with us and we can give you advice on that. If you don't think you've got enough recent relevant experience just for yourself, then you can also get some volunteering work, and you can maybe do a bit of shadowing maybe, or if you've got connections in a school or an educational setting, just to perhaps refresh that experience. But we can give advice on that if necessary. Now, this might seem a long way off, but we always like to make reference to graduation timescales and the process for that. Even if you've studied online for 3 years and you've not come to Dundee, we do really like to see people at the graduation ceremony. It's a great ceremony in Dundee, and the city centre, it's got a giant town hall, and we book the entire town hall out. It's a fantastic experience. The academic staff will be there on stage to sort of cheer you on. You'll be there with your peers and people perhaps that you've never met in person, but you've maybe met online, or you've got to know through the virtual learning environment and the virtual community. So there's 2 opportunities a year. So depending on when you finish, you'll be put forward for one of these graduation ceremonies, and they're either in June or they're in November. And we have a very famous garden party. So after the ceremony, all the students come back to the campus, where there's a large campus green in the middle of the campus, and there's marquees up, and there's usually music playing, and there's people perhaps having if people like that sort of thing, maybe a glass of champagne to celebrate, or a glass of soft drink. And often students will come over with their families, and they love coming over. It's a chance to maybe see other parts of the UK as well, maybe to visit Edinburgh, maybe London at the same time, maybe see friends and family who are here. Now, something to bear in mind is the registry department might let you know that you may be eligible, but it does depend on you passing any final modules. So sometimes people think that they've completed the final module and that's them qualified with the MEd, but you do have to wait for the registry team to confirm that's gone through. But if you finished and you need a completion of studies or completion of attainment record, maybe for a job, requirement, or maybe for a visa, then you can access this from the graduation office before you get your final certificate. But we can't release the certificates until the graduation event. This is just one of the university's internal rules. So we let people know about that in case you're planning ahead and you're thinking about at what point will you be maybe applying for a new job, or do you need to finish by. Now, I mentioned a lot earlier about the employability at the University of Dundee. This is something we're really proud of, and we're one of the top 200 universities in the world for graduate employability when that data was last collected in 2022. You'll have access to the careers service for 5 years after graduating. So earlier today, I got an email from an employer in one of the biggest employers in China, and they employ language specialists, English language specialists, and they were asking if they could possibly do a presentation to our students through our careers service so that they could recruit master's graduates, and it's the master's graduates they were particularly interested in as well. So by being a graduate of the University of Dundee, you'll have access to that for 5 years after you've finished to help you and give you guidance. Now, the sort of jobs that MEd graduates have gone on to include everything from leadership roles in schools, vice principals, principals in big international schools, possibly gone on to work in policy settings, maybe working in local government or educational administration, or they've pursued research-based careers. And we've had lots and lots of students who've been very successful and have gone on to undertake PhD study and carry out their own research in future as well. So we're just drawing to a close now, but I thought we'd finish on some of the feedback from some of our students. Here's one particular quote. So one of our students in recent years has said, through understanding professionalism and specifically reflection, which is a big part of the course, this has empowered me to take my teaching to the next level. And I found this as a master's student myself. I found my teaching had been transformed. The example I gave you, working with the little boy and his his reflections on the different themes in the books, it gave me that impetus to improve my teaching and to get to the next stage in my career. Another comment here is about the research inquiry that you'll carry out. So being able to carry out an inquiry into your own practice will help you also identify areas for improvement, whether it's at school level, whether it's at class level, or maybe if you're working in an administration function, maybe in local government or for a group of schools, then you could have a benefit going well beyond your individual class. The support that people get from is always identified as being excellent, and something we're really proud of as a teaching team. There's probably up to about 30 staff that are involved in the teaching, but there's a core teaching team of about 10 to 15 staff across the different modules, and we are all really dedicated to giving you that best possible experience. We have regular staff development sessions. We've had one recently, we've got another one coming up, where we talk about our approaches to teaching and learning, how we can effectively deliver quality experiences for you as the students, as online learners, how we can apply that to our curriculum design, how we can come up with alternative and innovative approaches to assessment as well. And something that always comes back is how friendly, welcoming and supportive the teaching team are. So I don't know if Helen, if you want to come in here at this particular point, because I think there's just a few final points on the tuition fees and the application dates, if you want to add to this.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard. It was a very, very informative session. And just on this last slide, yes, you can contact us with regards to the fees for the upcoming intake, which is October, November of 2024. And we do have a very, very flexible payment plan. So do get in touch with us and we'll be able to provide you with details on that. Okay, so I have been looking at quite a few questions in the background, and as I mentioned earlier, I have managed to group these together. And I'm going to start off with the first question from Bianca. And Bianca's question is, I did a similar course at another institution, and unfortunately the student support was not very strong. So my question to you, Dr. Richard, is how effective is your teaching support?
That's a really, really good question, and it's something that that we know is really particularly important, especially as an online distance learner, is you don't feel that the same connection that a student might have who's in country. The in-country students have access to the student services, and that's a building in the centre of campus. And what that team and that department have tried to do is they've tried to, wherever possible, match that same level of support for you as online distance learners, so that you can contact them through email and you can arrange to have video calls if you need. So that's the university's level of student support. I mentioned the fact that we've got the Advisor of Studies system in place, and all students at the University of Dundee have access to this, and this includes online distance learning students as well. And your Advisor of Studies for your particular cohort, your group of students, which is Stafford, which I mentioned is Helen Cunningham, will reach out to you and just check in to see if people are okay, see how things are going. But you also have that opportunity to contact them, to get in touch with them and say, look, I need some advice. And Helen is the sort of person, as are all the staff, she'll arrange a time for you that's convenient for you. If it needs to be in the evenings, as long as she's available, and she can work that round, maybe because you're working during the day, to talk to you, to find out what's going on and to give you help and support. We've got systems in place, such as if you did have difficulties, and we really hope that nobody gets into this situation, but if they do, we've got what's called the mitigating circumstances system or situation. So you can give evidence of any particular challenges you might have, and that might allow you to get an extension for an assessment, possibly take a temporary withdrawal as well. And the other thing that Helen will do as your Advisor of Studies is be able to signpost you to the experts or the people within the universities, whether it's the student support team, or whether it's the maybe you're just having difficulty, say, accessing the reading list or something like that. So she can give you some support and point you in the direction of the IT team who would help you with that as well. So it's something we're quite proud of. What we would say to people is sometimes, say, for example, myself, I work on one of our teacher training programs where students have placements in schools, and this course doesn't have that. So there might be a 2-week period where I'm visiting students, a couple of students a day, traveling around visiting them. So if that is the case, we say wait a couple of days for feedback, but you can also follow it up again. So if you've not heard from that member of staff and just said, oh, I was looking for a bit of help, a bit of assistance, and the sooner you can get in touch with us and let us know, the quicker we can help you out. But yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea of the level of support that's available. But I do know as well that Stafford are excellent in this too. So it's almost like you're getting that extra support by having a Stafford representative. And there'll be times when maybe someone's on leave. Sometimes in the summer, the UK summer, in July, somebody might be on leave for a couple of weeks. But then we can help you out. Either the program lead or the program administrator can put you in touch with somebody else who would be able to give you that help and support as well. So yeah. So hopefully that answers the question.
That's good, excellent. And Dr. Richie is quite correct. We do have a dedicated administration department so that you can contact us here in the Middle East, and we will also then be in touch with the university on your behalf as well. So as Dr. Richie said, quite a strong support system for you. Okay, then the next question comes from Lumna. I do have a diploma in teaching, no degree. However, I do have 16 years of teaching experience, and unfortunately it is shown that I cannot apply based on the simple teaching experience. And why is that?
Okay, Lorna. So the first thing to say is actually, I think we would look at that application. So we look at every application on its merits, and the fact that you've got 16 years experience, I think would be a real advantage and a positive. We have accepted people in the past. It's less common now in the UK, but not until the 1980s were schools requiring, or the governments of England and Scotland requiring people to have a degree to teach. So there are still some people in the UK teaching system who went down a diploma route similar to yourself there as well. So I think my advice would be probably to get in touch with Stafford in the first instance, put forward your expertise and your knowledge, and explain how you've used that and how that would work in your favour as a student on this particular course. So yes, we can take extensive experience, educational experience, classroom experience in lieu of the academic qualifications. Helen, I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
Right. The standard entry criteria is obviously to have a bachelor degree equivalent to a UK level 6 honours from an approved institution. But as Dr. Richard says, if your working experience is very extensive, so Lumna, in your case, 16 years experience is really quite strong. We can send your application to the university. That then does also go to a panel of academics. Program leaders will have a look at it, and then they will provide us the relevant feedback. Okay, so this is what we call exception to the rule. So please do get in touch with us, and let's see if we can assist you to try and send your documentation to the university.
It is an interesting point, actually. There's somebody that one of our graduates I'm still in touch with, and I've done some writing with, and interestingly, he didn't have qualified teacher status for the UK. So although he was originally from England, had gone abroad and worked in international schools and effectively built up that experience, and was extremely successful on the MEd, is now working in curriculum and learning design, and occasionally comes back and talks to the students as well. So that we really do not want to, to ignore or to dismiss that practical educational experience from around the world. So yeah, very much. Please do consider it, and please do get in touch, and we'll see if we can hopefully, look at that positively.
Excellent, good. And a question that has come through from Asma. I have a completely different background. My background is in social work, and I do want to get into teaching. Can I apply for the program?
Okay, so the requirement that you're relating to there is the experience as a teacher, as an educator. Now, it's not a program that's going to qualify you to teach. So what we're not going to go through is explain how to do lesson planning or how you're going to design a curriculum. Now, that doesn't mean you can't investigate that and learn more about that. So this is one of the reasons that we say we do want you to have some experience, and that can be, from 15, 20 years experience as a teacher, maybe as a leader, maybe as a principal, down to maybe a few weeks or a few months. But the first module that most people study is reflecting upon practice, and in that we ask people to reflect on their experiences as an educator. Now, the education element there doesn't have to be teaching in a school. So you don't have to be a kindergarten, elementary school teacher, or a secondary school science or English teacher or something like that. We do look at education in the broadest sense. So although most of the staff have been teachers or university educators, we've also got people with experience from more generic or general sector of teaching and learning and education. So if there's been an element in your previous roles that there's maybe been some training responsibilities that you've had, maybe you've been guiding people in their professional development, then there might be a way of looking at that as your practical experience. And then perhaps if you were wanting to get into a particular sector of teaching, such as you want to be an elementary school teacher or a secondary school teacher, if you can arrange some shadowing or some experience, volunteering maybe, just perhaps for an afternoon a week for a few weeks or something like that, then you could also include that on your application as well. What we got to be careful about is that somebody with absolutely no experience whatsoever is trying to access, say, a module like reflective practice, where we start saying, right, we want to think back on an example where you have led a particular episode of learning, or you've been guiding some learners, whether it's adult learners or whether it's children, and then you've not got any practical examples for that. There are training courses that will take you through that, which usually give you qualified teacher status. So there's things like the International PGCE, which you might have heard of, which is offered by different institutions as well. So it's possible. We don't want to talk anybody out of coming to study with us, but it's possible that might be the route that's a bit more suitable if you were looking for that, training course that trains you to teach. So Helen, I hope that's okay. Again, I don't want to be. I would encourage people to apply, but it is that practical experience is quite an important part.
That's right. That's right. There is a standard entry criterion that we do have to obviously meet, and that is you must have some kind of teaching experience. So again, as Dr. Richard said, if you've done anything in your past that was related to education, please do send us your CV so that we can actually have a look through that. We'll also sit down and chat to you and see if there is a possibility of trying to apply for the program. Okay, and the next question comes in from Kristen. I have been informed that there is a TESOL specialization, and I see that you have mentioned this again, Dr. Richard, this evening. My question is, why should I do it through the University of Dundee, as there are some professional qualifications out there that do the same thing?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So the reason that we offer a TESOL route is because we're imagining students who want to come and do a full master education, but they work in that particular TESOL field. So the two specific modules, the 60 credits that would focus on TESOL and give you that expertise, it's taking you from being a TESOL teacher or a teacher of additional of second language, English as second language, to the next step by giving it that master's level theoretical background. Now, the other thing about being part of a master's qualification, a 3-year master's qualification, is that this final dissertation module that you undertake will allow you to then investigate or research a particular topic that's relevant to your setting, that's relevant to what you're interested in, maybe the age of students you're working with, and that would also focus on TESOL. So I know what you're talking about. There are TESOL qualifications that might not be a full master or full MEd qualification, but that's probably the difference between what we're offering and those particular qualifications. In the same way that a master's might be accepted in some countries for qualified teacher status, it's not in the UK because there's not the practical placement side of it. There are a variety of different ways to gain a qualification in TESOL and to go and work in that particular sector if you're not already doing so. So it's worth doing some research into those, seeing what the course content is. And if you wanted to know more about those modules, you could get in touch with us and we can put you in touch with the principal lecturer for that particular TESOL route. Maksud has got lots of international experience, has worked globally, is now with us in Dundee, but has worked in Australia amongst other places, and has a real strong research background in TESOL and the related areas and related fields. So yeah, if you want to know a bit more about that, we could probably put you in touch with them and they could give you that specific information. Although we've got quite a lot of students on the MEd, it fluctuates year on year depending on where we are, and there might be several hundred students studying. Because of the different modules and the different routes, on most of the modules there'll be quite a small number of students at one time, so it allows the module leader, the tutors, to develop this little community of practice, this little group of students working together on something. So I think that's another advantage of undertaking the TESOL route or any of the routes with us at Dundee.
Good, good. And a question has come through from Maya. I have registered for a full MEd in educational leadership. If I decide to exit with a postgraduate certificate after the 60 credits, when should I be informing the university of my decision?
That's a great question. Before you go to the next module is the quick answer to that, or possibly before you've had the next set of fees paid would probably be the answer to do that, and Stafford could obviously advise you on that. But one of the advantages of this modular program is that sometimes you can find that you've studied for a year for 2 modules, and perhaps you think I could do with a break, and there are options to take a temporary withdrawal. But what we also encourage people to do is to think, well, would you like to exit at this point with that certificate? And then you can have up to 5 years where you could apply to rejoin again, and you could come back in at that particular stage. So you wouldn't have to do those 2 modules again, and then you could re-engage with your studies, and you could undertake the diploma or go on and do the full MEd as well. So we'd probably want to know, probably towards the end of that 2nd module, so that we can carry out the paperwork, we can let the university know, make sure that you weren't being charged extra. I think there will be technicalities based on the payment plans you're on as well as to when that would be. So again, Helen, I don't know if you've got more advice on that from that point of view, but certainly from our perspective, before you moved on to the next module would probably be the time to do it. So as you're approaching the assignment stage.
Correct. And again, my Dr. Richard is quite correct how to inform the university, but you would also need to inform the Stafford consultant and accounts department so that they are aware when your payments can actually stop, which is exactly what Dr. Richards was referring. Okay.
But,
so again,
we do understand that, you know, people who are working, or you're maybe even sometimes we have students who move between different countries for personal reasons, or they're moving around, moving between schools. So a bit like the first question or the earlier question we had about student support, the best thing to do is to get in touch, is to ask those questions, see what's available, email your advisor of studies, maybe ask the tutor on the program what perhaps they think about it as well, and they'll be available to give you that support and that guidance. Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect. And we have a question from Raul. Raul is located in Oman. How readily accepted is this degree worldwide?
Okay, so a bit like we've discussed already, the fact that it's a professional, a course for professionals who are already in teaching, and that's what we're focusing on here. It doesn't give you that qualified teacher status that you might get from, if you've heard of PGCEs in the English universities, and in the Scottish universities we offer a teacher training course called a PGDE, where you come to the university for a year, you have 3 placements in schools. It's not that sort of qualification. However, as a master's level qualification, if you're looking for career advancement, you're maybe looking to move into leadership, maybe you work in the IB sector or the international schooling sector, and you choose to do one of the IB routes, then yes, it's universally recognized and accepted for that purpose. So you need to have a bit of a think about what is your reason for doing it, and what are your perhaps career aspirations, what sort of decisions do you think you might be making in the near future. In some countries, it is accepted as a teaching qualification. The reason we can't give you that list is because as governments change, as different sort of political parties come into power, as administrative changes are made at government or at local government or a regional level, it changes from time to time. So we've got to be careful that we don't give incorrect information. So if you're planning to be working in a particular area, in a particular school, then it would be worth asking them whether this is a qualifying program for that or not. But from a point of view of somebody who is already qualified as a teacher, is already working in a particular setting, a sector, a particular region, then as a master's level qualification to open up opportunities for you in leadership and administration functions, or just to develop your skills and knowledge, it is widely recognized, or globally recognized. So
Excellent. Okay, and a question that's come from Mohammed. Can I start with the accelerated route and then scale back down to a normal route? Is this permitted?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got that flexibility because compared to some universities, we're a little bit smaller. So again, it would be the sort of thing that you would discuss with your advisor of studies. So we have had people do this and do it with it knowing that, say for example, they've moved somewhere, or they're having a career break, or they've got an opportunity and a time to do 2 modules at the same time, so they can afford to commit 35 hours a week to the study. And then they know that when the next semester starts, so maybe that you do that in October through December, you get your submissions in, and then the next module starts, you let your advisor of studies know, you let the administration team know at the university, you let Stafford know as well, and we can take you off fast track. And then what that would let you do, if you did 2 modules fast track and you did the rest of the modules at normal time, then that would be 2.5 years rather than the full 3 years. So it does depend on your individual circumstances. And in the same way, you might find that you do 1 module and you're coping really well, and then for some reason you think that you might have an opportunity to maybe do 2 modules. Again, you can request that with us. There would be impact on the funding and the fee payment, and we'd also need to know in plenty of time to get you added to the correct modules and have the administration done behind the scenes. But yeah, we do have that flexibility in there. It's easier for us if you make your decision at the beginning and stick to it, but we understand that people's circumstances change, and you might have requests to do something like that. So absolutely, yeah, that's a possibility.
Good. And Mona is located in Saudi Arabia, and her question is, do we get a personal supervisor for the dissertation?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and I didn't mention that. But when you get to the dissertation module, which for the full MEd is the final double module at the end of the course, which lasts for a year, you will still have access to a module leader. So that's Marie Beresford-Day at the moment. Marie's a highly experienced member of staff, has done lots of work with staff and students in the past, has expertise in leadership, in other areas as well. And Marie is the module leader, so will deliver the online teaching, and she'll prepare the online materials that you'll be using. But in addition to, because it's a double module and because you're carrying out your own research project, you'll be allocated a supervisor for your project who will have similar interests to your topic within reason. So if, for example, you were interested in inclusive practice and supporting individual needs of learners, then somebody like my colleague Di Cantali, or somebody like Donna Day, who is another one of our colleagues that work on those modules, would be allocated to you as your supervisor for that dissertation. We also, I mentioned before that we have a core teaching team of about 10 to 15 people. So obviously within that teaching team, there is only a certain limited amount of expertise and knowledge, but we also have access to some partner tutors. And these are people who work with us from time to time. They might have specialism in certain other areas. So for example, if you had a very specialist interest in maybe using artificial intelligence for curriculum planning or for lesson resources, then we might have somebody in our partner tutor team that could perhaps help and support with that. So you get time with them. They can meet you online for tutorials, or they can give you formative feedback through emails and write to you and send you information that way. So again, a bit like the rest of the course, you can request the help that you think you need, and it can be, that support can be planned to suit your particular circumstances as well. So yes, very much so. You get a specialist supervisor allocated to you for your dissertation project. And it's one of the things I really enjoy doing. I'm working with 4 students at the moment, in addition to some PhD students, but 4 students on the MEd, and all of them have got a wealth of different experience. They've got different project ideas that they want to research. They've got different methods and methodology. So as a supervisor, it's a great opportunity to work alongside somebody like that. And depending on how successful you are, I worked with somebody a few years ago who did a really great project in an area I was quite interested in, and we published the results of their research in a journal not long ago. So yeah, there's opportunity as well for that relationship to go on beyond the end of the course too.
Excellent, excellent. And we have Sibongile, who is joining us all the way from Ghana this evening.
Oh, fantastic.
Great. And her question is, it's quite an interesting question. I haven't studied online at all and may not know how to use the university system. So is there an induction on how to use the system? I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in addition to the support that you would get on the course, on the Master of Education programme from the staff, and for the various modules, so we've got a department called the Centre for Technology Enhanced Learning, and they produce videos and little tutorials that will guide you through accessing and making the most of the virtual learning environment, My Dundee. Now, if you've used portals and you've used websites and things like Facebook, for example, then I'm sure that the virtual learning environment is not that much different from it. It's got its own look, it's got its own design and the way it's all laid out, but you log in with your university credentials. It's a single sign-in, so your email address and your password is the same for all of the university different systems, whether it's the library resource list, the book, the online book library resource that we have, whether it's we've got a license to access a referencing and citation service that will help you. Again, you log in with the same thing for that. You log into the virtual learning environment, and your email as well is all done in the same way. So it's the same password, it's the same username. And at the beginning, when you first study, there'll be a welcome session, and either Anna Robb, the program academic lead, or somebody else from the program will arrange a session where they sort of introduce you and they talk you through things, and you find out a little bit more about what's happening on the program. So yeah, so we will give you that help and support. And the university IT team are very good as well, and they'll offer remote support. So all you have to do is email help4you@dundee.ac.uk, tell them what your problem is, and they will be able to give you advice and help. And if necessary, they can do a remote call with you as well to try and talk you through things. So if you're having difficulties, it is important that you've got access to the technology to access the learning. So whether it's the reading list, whether it's the teaching materials, whether it's the webinars, and a stable internet connection is also important. Now, we understand that's not possible everywhere, and that's why we record some of the sessions, but we have had students, not so much recently, but certainly in the past, perhaps have been very remotely based, and they find it a little bit difficult. We also advise having access to a computer, a desktop computer, or a laptop. Sometimes people try to do their studies on their phone, and although the virtual learning environment is set up that you can access it on your phone, you will probably get a much better experience if you do have access to either a laptop or a desktop computer, or at least you know somebody that will happily share it with you and let you use theirs.
Absolutely, good. That's a good response there, Dr. Richard. So Sibongile, do not panic. You will be ripe and ready to access this program. They will be able to assist you with that. Okay, and we have two last questions. One from Bianca is, are there any additional fees to gain my IB certification?
Yeah, so that's another good question. I think there's an administration fee to the International Baccalaureate. I'm not sure what it is currently, but what you could do is you could possibly contact them directly, or Helen, again, I don't know if Stafford would be able to find that information out maybe from our team or from somebody, but I think there is a small administration charge which the International Baccalaureate may ask you for, but I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is? So, yeah.
Yes, you're quite correct. There is a small fee that has to be paid directly to IB. Again, we do not get involved in that process either. Applicants have to actually contact IB directly. Fees may change, from year to year. So we don't want to give any incorrect information on that, but you do contact IB directly and they'll be able to assist you with that. Okay.
I think from memory, it wasn't excessive, but again, I don't want to commit to anything in case I'm wildly out and it's gone up a lot recently. But what I will say is that the fees for the program aren't any different, and we've discussed this over the years as whether we should, because of the IB route is a slightly different route and is offering something different. But all of the fees for the modules and for the different routes, the PG cert, the PG dip, and the diploma and the full MEd, they're the same whichever named award it is. So we don't have any differences there.
Absolutely. And the last question from Raul, which a lot of students do ask is the term online distance learning reflected on my degree certificate?
I'm pretty sure that it's not, and I know that causes people a bit of concern because it can be a problem if you are applying to maybe teach somewhere, and it's one of the requisites of the qualification system for the country that you're working in. However, what I will say is that we do occasionally get queries from whether it's accrediting bodies or it's registration bodies to ask us what the course involved, and we do need to be really clear on this, that if you're doing the postgraduate certificate, which has got the same name as the PGCE with QTS, that it doesn't have QTS with it, qualified teacher status, and it doesn't have the placement or practicum element. So we do need to stress that to you, that if that's what you're thinking of, do be careful with that and do make these inquiries yourselves with the various registration bodies. But I'm absolutely certain it doesn't say, it just says Master of Education MEd and then the named award on your certificate.
Correct, absolutely, Raul. Your degree certificate is identical to students that are doing it full-time on campus. Okay, so it's not state online distance learning. Okay, good, fantastic. I have managed to put all the questions together, some very interesting questions that came through this evening, and thank you everyone from joining us from different parts of the world today. As we know, we had from Africa as well as other parts of the Middle East. We are currently accepting applications for the October intake, so do get in touch with us so that we can send your application to the university as early as now, so that you can actually secure your place in the cohort. Again, Dr. Richards, a fantastic pleasure being with you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure to meet you all as well. Thank you, Helen.
Alrighty, bye-bye.